Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is my first video of 2017, so I want to say I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I apologize we have to start this on a negative note with terrorism. So this New Year's Eve I kind of took it easy a little bit, which is not normal for me for New Year's Eve, but I was awoken on New Year's Day with a bunch of messages, instant messages, PMs, phone calls, asking if I was okay. And I was informed that there was a terrorist attack in Istanbul. And you guys know I love Istanbul. I go to Istanbul quite often. I was there in November, middle of November. And a lot of my friends and family thought I might still be there or might have gone back for New Year's. And it broke my heart, especially just to wake up and see Istanbul get hit again after everything that's already happened to them with the football match and everything. I decided it was time to do a video like this. People constantly ask me, how do I deal with terrorism when I travel? Does it deter me from going to certain places? As I was doing the outline for this video, another terrorist attack happened in Turkey, in Izmir, which is on the coast. And I had to go back and redo this outline. And then when I got ready to record this a couple days ago, another terrorist attack, this time in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at the airport, FLL, actually an airport that I fly into quite often. And it's just exhausting. It's exhausting because I live this. I'm not on the sideline. So many people in the media and in the West are just on the sidelines watching this shit happen. And some of us are out here. I was in the past, 3 months, I've been to Belgium that got hit. I was in Nice that got hit. I was in Paris that got hit. I was in Istanbul that got hit. And now Bangkok that's been hit. All within the last couple months. So I've seen the impact that these attacks have had on the people, the infrastructure, and the media coverage. So I wanted to take a second. I wanted to start this video by explaining how I deal with terrorism, how we all can do things to help fight and combat terrorism and move forward, and what seriously needs to be done. So the very first thing that we can do is we can hold ourselves accountable. A lot of the things, a lot of the pain and the suffering that's happened around the world, it's easily seen if we take the time to look for it. And I'm gonna talk about the media in the next point, but we have to take personal responsibility to understand what other people are going through, what other people are thinking, what other people have to deal with on a daily basis. We have to have empathy for these people, even if it doesn't touch us, even if it doesn't impact us. And it's increasingly frustrating for somebody like me who has friends. I have friends all around the world. I mean, I can sit down and likely name people in 50 countries that I would consider a friend, or somebody I can reach out to and talk to about what's going on. And so I think I'm unique in that way. I'm a unique kind of person that I have that accessibility to people. But those of us who live in the West, those who live in the West who don't have that kind of access to people who are from Syria, people who are from Turkey, people who are from Nigeria, people who are from France, people who are from Thailand and South Korea and South Africa and Colombia and Venezuela. Those people like you, have to go out of your way to find ways to interact and speak with these people. And I'm not saying you have to book a ticket to Venezuela. What I'm saying is you have to find channels and outlets to understand what truly is going on, because terrorism thrives in places where there isn't understanding, where there isn't empathy, where there isn't interaction. They say racism and xenophobia, it can't survive exposure. And the reason that it's so prevalent today is because even though we've become more connected with the internet and travel, we've become more disconnected with these echo chambers that we create for ourselves, where we surround ourselves with people who look like us and think like us and act like us. You can look at it in the presidential election in the U.S., how segregated everybody is, how we create these small collectives of understanding and hive mind mentality where we don't have to challenge ourselves, we don't have to challenge our beliefs and our culture, and that's being used against us. There's a really good website called Interpals, Interpals, .net. I'm pretty sure it's .net. It's saved in my browser. But I want to say maybe 10 years ago, I discovered Interpals, even before I started traveling as much as I do. And I would have these internet conversations with people from around the world. And these are people who want to understand more about your culture. It's like old school pen pals. When we were kids, I'm 33, so I'm going to say in the 80s and the 90s, we always had pen pals from around the world where you would write a letter, send it to them, and then mail it back. Now it's so much quicker. Like you can have people from Belgium, you got people from Nigeria, you got people from Colombia typing you messages on the internet, and these are people who want to know more about your culture as well as know more about your language and learn your language. So having a pen pal is an amazing way to understand the cultural dynamics of people. So the biggest thing that we can do is remove ourselves from these echo chambers and make an effort to understand really what's going on within these different countries, not only the ones that are affected by terrorism, but just different cultures around the world in general. Now, the second thing that we can do, and I think this is probably the biggest thing that we can do, I should have made it number one, we need to hold politicians accountable. And let me be clear about something, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, is a lot of the terrorism that's happening today is a direct result of our politicians and their actions. There's absolutely zero question that our politicians have long provoked terrorism. It's insane that people don't understand this concept or refuse to acknowledge the fact that Western governments have done shit for decades to destabilize regions for our own benefit. And it's not even an opinion. This isn't a conspiracy theory. WikiLeaks exploded, blew that up. I mean, it is verified and documented fact that our governments have been subversive and manipulative in the way that they interact with other cultures for our benefit, or mainly for their benefit. Let's be clear about that. Mainly for their benefit. And they aren't held accountable, which is fucking frustrating to me, because as a culture, and this is one thing I love about Americans. I'm only talking about Americans right now. As an American culture, we're fucking arrogant, and we hate people trying to play us and manipulate us. That's one of my favorite things about us, is that it's this pride, this ridiculous pride. But when you have easily verifiable evidence showing that you've been played consistently, and then you constantly allow these people to continue to be in power, you don't give a fuck. Like that, and that's the thing, and this kind of goes back to the first point, is that stop pretending like you fucking care. Like you honestly care what the politicians are doing, because clearly you don't. When you run on Facebook and you put a pray for Belgium or Brussels and pray for Paris, but you don't say shit about what's going on in Nigeria, you don't say anything about what's going on in Turkey, like you don't say anything about what's going on in Syria. So you only care when they look like you, because that's what the media portrays. That's what the media and politicians put out there. Like, oh, we should worry about these people who look like us. Like, we gotta hold them accountable. If you want to really stop and stand up against terrorism, if you want to stand up against xenophobia, and I'm talking to Democrats, I'm talking to Republicans, I'm talking to the independents, I'm talking to those in the UK, those in Germany, those in Spain, those in France, those in Brussels. Like, I'm talking about all of us who claim to care about what politicians are doing, yet we don't hold them accountable, we don't vote them out of office, and we allow them to continue to perpetuate this cycle of violence, of terrorism. You think that a 12-year-old whose family was killed in a drone strike orchestrated by the United States government gives a fuck about their reasoning? You think, how easy is it going to be to convince that 12-year-old kid that the United States or the West is the enemy, and to get him into ISIS or ISIL? Think about it. Think about what you would do if an unmanned drone was constantly dropping bombs on your home as a child. Think about that. We don't hold that. We have no empathy, and we need to hold these politicians accountable and say, look, if you're gonna drop bombs on innocent people, you better be ready to tell us why. You better be ready to give us the information as to why you did what you did. And until that happens, it's gonna keep happening. Until we hold politicians accountable, you're going to see attacks in Istanbul, in Paris, in New York, in Florida, in Brussels, everywhere. And it's sad to say, it's going to happen again because we aren't doing shit to change it. Now, this next point is specifically media driven. Stop letting white people tell our narrative. And this goes, this is international. And it's baffling to me why people feel that it's acceptable for Anderson Cooper to tell you what's going on in Syria as opposed to a fucking Syrian person. Like, why is this so hard to... You allow people, and we are notorious for this in the U.S., especially in the black community. We allow people who don't look like us, who don't know much about our culture, who have not grown up where we grew up, to tell our story, to tell our narrative. We are electing 65-year-old rich white men to tell me what it's like to be a young black man. Like, we are electing 65-year-old rich white men to tell women what they can do with their bodies. We are electing these same people into media organizations to tell us what's going on around the world, as opposed to looking for sources that grew up in these areas, that understand the cultural background and significance of certain movements to inform us, to tell us what's going on around the world. We have to start promoting journalism, unbiased journalism within our communities to allow our narratives to be told in an accurate way, as opposed to allowing them being skewed. We bitch and moan and complain about our media representation, but we refuse to cultivate young journalism in our communities, in Syria, in Nigeria, in the United States, in Colombia. We have to start standing up and saying, we want people who look like us, who understand us, to tell our story. And the last thing is, don't allow yourself to be controlled by fear. And this isn't just fear of terrorism. This is fear of immigrants. This is fear of losing your job. This is fear. This is, don't allow fear of others to control you. And in reality, that's what terrorism does. It makes you change your travel plans, and it makes you elect people who should never ever be in office. It makes you weak. It makes you weak. Now, I'm not saying go to a war zone. I'm not telling you to go on holiday in Afghanistan. Now, I'm not saying that at all. But do your research, proper diligence, and don't allow this shit to deter you, because that's its goal. That's its purpose, because if you do, it wins. Terrorism wins. Fear-mongering wins if you allow it to win. And that's the thing about all of this. It's like, oh, well, they killed 12 of the terrorists. Yeah, good. They achieved their goal. People are terrified to go to Istanbul right now. I was in Istanbul, and you guys who see my Istanbul video know this. It was a damn ghost town. It was eerily quiet. And I lived in Istanbul. I've been to Istanbul so many times. To see it that way, imagine Times Square with no people. No people on a Saturday afternoon. Imagine that. Imagine Grosvenor Square with no people. Or Tokyo, Shibuya in Tokyo with no people. And if you've never been to these places, it's just, they're all insane, crowded all the time. But it's frustrating to see fear win. And to see the media consistently perpetuate this cycle of fear mongering. And I get it. They make money from it. That's how they stay afloat. I understand it, but we can't continue to perpetuate this cycle. So I want to close this out by saying how terrorism affects me. and my travel plans. Realistically, it doesn't. And no, I have never not gone someplace because there was a terrorist attack. As I just told you, I was in Paris, I was in Nice, I was in Brussels, I was in Istanbul, when I get to the end of September, all the way up until now. I'm in Bangkok now. Terrorism literally has zero bearing on my travel plans in any way. I do my due diligence. I stay hyper aware in crowded places. I move quickly. I tend to move quickly through very crowded places, and that's about it, really. And my advice, it's tough. It's so fucking tough because I'll feel terrible if I was like, oh, well, you know, this place is safe. Reality is we don't live in a safe world. And that's part of travel. We don't live in a safe world. And I have no idea who told you that the world is a safe place and everybody's equal and everybody's nice and kind. That's just not the reality of it. There are bad people in the world. There will always be bad people in the world. But I've outlined some things that I think that we really can effectively do to minimize terrorist attacks. And the biggest thing is we have to care. That's the biggest thing, guys. We have to fucking care. Like, we have to care about Nigeria as much as we care about Paris, France. Like, we have to care about Turkey as much as we care about Belgium. We have to care about Syria as much as we care about the US. Because terrorists have shown us we are all one people, the human race. They've quickly shown us that, because death is death. The end is the end. And if we don't change quick, this ain't gonna stop no time soon. So thank you so much once again for coming back. I'm so glad to be here in 2017 and share my travels and my thoughts with you as usual. Make sure if you guys agree with me or if you disagree with me, go ahead and comment below. And I'm curious, how has terrorism or the fear of terrorism affected your travel plans or your thoughts or your perceptions? And have you done anything to try to combat terrorism in any way? And again, don't forget to subscribe and share and leave the world better than you found it. I'll see you guys next time.